All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a story that's going to make you rethink quite a lot, actually, about how careers are built and maybe even how wealth is really created. We're dissecting the truly extraordinary career of Tyra Banks. I mean, a woman who, everyone knows her name from the runway, from reality TV.
Sure, household name.
Absolutely. Yeah. But she's built this $90 million empire and even taught at Stanford Graduate School of Business. It just sounds like a complete paradox when you first hear it, doesn't it?
It really does.
But the real question we're tackling isn't just how she pulled it off, but the mindset, the thinking that allowed her to just repeatedly reinvent herself right there in plain sight. And baffling so many people along the way.
Yeah.
This isn't just about her incredible success. It's about decoding these almost invisible long game strategies and the sheer audacity, really, of a true wealth architect. Someone who doesn't just earn money, but designs entire systems for continuous evolution.
And that's precisely our mission today. Tyra's story it's so much more than just your typical tale of fame and fortune. It's honestly a masterclass in power.
Yeah.
In shaping your own public image, building a lasting legacy, and crucially, having the courage to design your own narrative from the ground up, no matter what expectations people put on you. So we're going to trace her incredible transformation, from the dazzling heights of fashion fame right into the polished intellectual halls of academic prestige.
It's quite the jump.
It is. What truly made her trade that runway for the lecture hall. And maybe more importantly for us, what can we as listeners truly learn from her, let's say, meticulously crafted playbook? Not just about business, but about personal agency, about continuous growth.
Okay.
Consider this your shortcut maybe to understanding the strategic thinking that underpins her entire empire. Get ready, because we're about to uncover some truly surprising facts, some insights that might just make you rethink your own path, perhaps even your own definition of success.
Okay, let's unpack this then. It's fascinating because to really understand Tyra's foundational shift in thinking about money, we have to go all the way back to a moment that was, frankly, pretty brutal for her. Picture this. She's just 17 years old, a young model arriving in Paris, the fashion capital of the world. She had a suitcase, a dream, and, unbelievably, only $3 in her wallet.
$3? Wow.
Right. Her modeling agency had booked her solid, back-to-back castings, assuming, I guess, that a teenage girl could just navigate a foreign city completely alone.
Which is crazy in itself.
Totally crazy. Yeah. So after this grueling, silent day filled with endless rejections, she finds herself just standing there in the cold. Absolutely no money for a cab, no local support system, no clue how she was going to get dinner. It sounds like something out of a movie, but it was her stark reality. And it left, an indelible mark.
In that moment, it was deeply sobering for her, far beyond just being humbling, It taught her a brutal truth that no business school lecture could ever really convey.
Right.
In the modeling industry, which is notoriously cutthroat, you are celebrated today, sure, adorned with the finest clothes. You can be very, very easily forgotten tomorrow.
So quickly.
So quickly. You are paid for your appearance, for that ephemeral moment in the spotlight, but never, ever for ownership. The real money, the lasting wealth that's made by the people behind the camera.
The infrastructure people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The designers, the photographers, the agency owners, not the faces in front of it. And Tyra saw this dynamic with just crystal clarity. And in that moment of vulnerability, she made a conscious, maybe even radical decision. She decided to flip the formula entirely. She understood that if she just remained a face, the story, the image, and crucially the profit would always belong to someone else. She knew deep down, I think, she wasn't meant to be just an asset. She was meant to be the architect of her own destiny.
That's such a powerful way to frame it. She absolutely didn't want to be, the face of someone else's vision forever. She wanted to be the engine behind her own.
Exactly, the engine.
So this pivotal understanding, it led directly to what became her first major financial philosophy.
Right.
That money should outlive the spotlight, right? And your income must survive your popularity.
Crucial distinction.
It is. And this is precisely why, in 2003, right at the absolute peak of her supermodeling fame, she was a cultural icon at this point.
Huge. Victoria's Secret angel, everything.
Everything. She launched America's Next Top Model. But here's the kicker, and it's so, so important to grasp this. She didn't just sign on as the star, or even just an executive producer, which many do.
Right, that's common.
She was the creator, the executive producer, and crucially, the rights holder. all through her own company, Bankable Productions. Now, this move was, strategically speaking, pure genius.
It really was.
It meant she took full control over the show's intellectual property, the underlying concept, the format, the brand name itself. This allowed her to manage all the licensing deals, the international adaptations, the residual income.
The back end.
The back end. The show became this global phenomenon, dominating pop culture for years. But for Tyra, maybe more importantly, it became her absolute financial anchor, securing her financial future far, far beyond her modeling days.
And this was a truly pivotal move. It established an unprecedented level of financial independence for someone in her position at that time. And it built this robust foundation that extended way beyond just, transient fame.
Yeah.
It's not just that she made a hit show, it's that she fundamentally changed the terms of her engagement with the whole entertainment industry.
Yeah.
She wasn't just performing for a paycheck anymore.
Right.
She was building an infrastructure.
Yeah.
An infrastructure designed to generate long-term wealth and, crucially, control. And this principle of ownership, of controlling her IP, it extended to her expansion into beauty with Tyra Beauty.
Okay, yeah.
And again, this wasn't just another celebrity endorsement deal where she just lends her name for a cut of the profits.
Yeah.
That's the standard model.
The easy route, maybe.
The easier route, for sure. Her intention was to create a scalable, direct-to-consumer model, leveraging technology and community to empower other women, actually, to become entrepreneurs themselves by selling her products.
Interesting.
Now, while the company didn't endure long-term as a product line, in the way L'Oreal or Estee Lauder might.
Right, it had its run.
It had its run. But she explicitly considered it a success because it taught her, in her words, how to fail forward at scale.
Fail forward at scale. I like that.
It's a great phrase, isn't it? It means she viewed the experience, even its eventual closure, as a product line, as this invaluable learning opportunity. She gained firsthand experience in product development, supply chain logistics, distribution, community building, all on a significant commercial scale.
Stuff you can't learn from a book.
Exactly. This is all part of a larger strategic game where every venture, even one that might not hit its initial commercial targets, was a building block, a source of data, of experience for whatever came next.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, and it highlights that deeper strategic game you just mentioned. Think about her next symbolic financial move, enrolling at Harvard Business School in 2011 for an executive education program.
At the Owner-President Management Program.
Right. And let's be absolutely clear, this wasn't about chasing credentials to hang on her wall. She was already famous, already successful by any conventional measure.
Totally. Didn't need the validation on paper.
Not at all. Her motivation was pure and strategic. She wanted to gain fluency in the language of high finance, in valuation, in funding, in deal making. She wanted to understand how capital really works.
The mechanics of it.
The deep mechanics, not just from a superficial celebrity perspective, but from the inside. So she could walk into any boardroom, not as the celebrity guest, but as the person who could genuinely shape the agenda, analyze a balance sheet, and command respect in complex negotiations.
That's a power shift.
Huge power shift. And she's spoken often about overhearing someone on campus say, kind of dismissively, "Why is she here?" Yeah. The implication, of course, being that she was just a pretty face, a reality TV personality who didn't belong in such an esteemed academic setting. But that sting, that comment, it didn't break her. It focused her. It honed her resolve and pushed her even harder to master the material.
Exactly. Her goal at Harvard wasn't simply to learn how to make more money, although that was probably a natural outcome of increased financial literacy. It was far more profound. It was, as she put it, to redefine how women like her are allowed to talk about money at all.
Wow.
She fundamentally saw money not as a reward for past fame, but as a tool of authorship.
Authorship. I like that.
It's a great way to think about it. This mindset allowed her to write her own scripts, literally and figuratively, for her life and career, to back her own companies with real confidence, and, crucially, to say no when others in similar positions simply couldn't.
Because they lacked the financial understanding or the leverage.
Yeah, the freedom to say no. That's it. It gave her the ultimate control over her narrative and her work. Money, for Tyra, translates directly into agency, the ability to chart her own course, free from external pressures or that constant need to seek permission. It's about building like a financial fortress around her creative and personal freedom.
So if we just take a step back and look at this first pillar of her journey, the core insight is, well, it's strikingly clear. Don't aim to look rich. Aim to buy freedom.
That's powerful.
It really is. It's about securing the kind of freedom that lets you own your name, your time, and your future. It's a completely different paradigm than just, accumulating wealth for show.
And that leads us to a crucial question for you, the listener, to maybe just ponder for a moment. What does your current income system truly buy you? Is it just more hours to trade for a paycheck, or is it creating more space? More space to think, to create, to design your own path.
Oof, that's a good one.
Think about that as we move into our next section, which really builds on this idea of control and agency.
Yeah, that's a powerful question, and it really sets the stage perfectly for our next strategic pillar. How Tyra fundamentally transitioned from being an asset, that radiant, famous face of fashion, to becoming an architect. Someone who owns the image, controls the story, and ultimately captures the profit. She grasped very early on that if you don't own that core image, that narrative, then both the story and the profit are always, always going to belong to someone else, not to you.
And this understanding, it led to her truly radical idea. Use visibility to create leverage, then turn leverage into infrastructure.
Okay, break that down.
So her shift from modeling to media ownership with bankable productions wasn't just a whim. It was a meticulously calculated pivot. She moved away from what she termed fragile fame, fame that depended on fleeting trends, on her appearance, on constant bookings.
The whims of the industry.
Exactly. She moved towards controlling intellectual property. This meant she didn't just get paid for her face. She owned the very ideas, the formats, the creations themselves. For America's Next Top Model, that meant owning the show's concept, the brand name, the ability to license it globally, ensuring these long-term revenue streams way beyond her direct involvement.
Right.
It's critical, really critical, to reiterate. She didn't just star in America's Next Top Model. She owned it.
Big difference.
Huge difference. Every season, every international adaptation, every licensing deal was structured, so she got a significant cut, not just a host paycheck. That distinction, as she always knew, made all the difference in building her empire.
What a difference it made. Because most celebrities, you see them building their careers by simply taking offers, responding to opportunities that come their way. They become incredibly successful, sure, but they're still, in essence, reacting.
They're playing someone else's game, often.
Yeah. Exactly. Tyra, on the other hand, she flipped that script entirely. She built hers by making platforms. And when AMTM exploded into that global franchise, she didn't just sit back and, enjoy the ride.
No way.
She shrewdly used that immense momentum to pivot again into the beauty industry with Tyra Beauty. She called her sales force beauty-tainers, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, catchy.
And the entire model was designed to be direct-to-consumer, aiming to train other women to become entrepreneurs themselves. It wasn't just about selling lipstick. It was about empowering a new generation to build their own economic agency, mirroring her own journey in a way.
It's vital to revisit Tyra Beauty, not merely as just another commercial venture, but as a live experiment for her. As we discussed, it didn't become this long-term beauty conglomerate.
Right.
Tyra herself explicitly deemed it a success because, again, it taught her how to fail forward at scale. This highlights her almost clinical, chessboard approach to her career.
Yeah, strategic.
Very strategic. Every move, every venture, even those that don't reach their initial commercial goals, still serves to open up future plays, to teach her new skills, to refine her strategy. It's not about constant, flashy wins. It's about continuous strategic repositioning and just extracting maximum learning from every single experience. It was her testing ground for building a product-based business, managing a large sales force. These are invaluable lessons for future endeavors.
And speaking of strategic repositioning and seemingly unrelated ventures, let's talk about her most recent move, which on the surface seemed completely out of left field for a supermodel.
Yeah.
The launch of SMiZE Dream ice cream in 2020. I mean, for someone known for high fashion and television, launching an ice cream brand seemed, random, right? That was certainly the common perception at the time.
Indeed, it appeared random to many. But Tyra, she understands everything about desserts. But in the context of human connection and experience, as she's explained it, the product wasn't the point, the experience was. Every single cup of SMiZE Dream ice cream includes this hidden SMiZE surprise truffle at the bottom. Now, this isn't just some quirky add-on. There's a reason. It's a profound symbol for unexpected sweetness in life. For the joy you find when you dig deeper, when you persevere through to the end. It transforms a simple snack into a narrative, an indulgence into a metaphor for life's hidden treasures and rewards.
That's actually quite deep for ice cream.
Right. And connecting this to her 2024 move to Sydney, Australia, to scale it globally, shows how even her physical location becomes part of the brand's evolution. Expanding its reach and story in a conscious, deliberate way. This wasn't some random pivot. It was an expansion of her philosophy into a new, tangible form.
What's truly remarkable when you lay it all out is the consistency beneath these seemingly disparate surface-level shifts. So what does this all mean for us? It means she has this overarching architectural strategy. She leverages her fame to build trust. Then she deliberately turns that trust into media platforms like ANTM. She uses those media platforms to generate capital, and then, crucially, she reinvests that capital into owned products, like her beauty line and now the ice cream.
Following the chain.
Following the chain. From there, she scales into international ecosystems. And finally, she dedicates herself to educating the next generation through teaching and mentorship. It's like this closed, self-reinforcing loop of reinvention and expansion, where every step funds and informs the next one.
This is a critical synthesis of her approach, absolutely. Tyra's brilliance isn't simply that she pivoted from modeling to media to entrepreneurship. It's how early and how meticulously she prepared for each pivot, laying the groundwork while everyone else was still focused on her current applause, her perceived identity at the time.
While they were still looking at the runway photos.
Exactly. She masterfully used temporary visibility, her fleeting fame as a model, to create permanent infrastructure. The companies, the intellectual property, the platforms that continue to generate value long after that initial spotlight fades. It's a blueprint for enduring impact, showing how you can transform transient attention into lasting influence and actual assets.
So what becomes undeniably clear here is that your name, yeah, it might open doors, but systems are what keep them open. It's a powerful lesson. Stop trading talent for time, and instead start trading attention for equity.
And for you, our listener, here's a profound question to ponder as we move on. Are you building a life that fundamentally depends on being seen, on constant external validation? Or are you constructing a self-sustaining system that earns and grows while you evolve, even when the spotlight inevitably shifts?
That's a big one.
Think about that as we move into the crucial daily practices that actually sustain this kind of intentional reinvention.
Okay, let's shift gears now. From the grand strategies to the almost invisible, the daily habits that sustain Tyra Banks behind the cameras. Because to the world, she's this high energy, high drama, high fashion personality.
The persona.
The persona. But beneath all that, what truly sustains her isn't just charisma, it's an underlying ritual. A deep, almost academic discipline, actually. She's had this long-standing habit of documenting every strategy, every pivot, every breakdown, every win.
Wow.
This isn't just like casual journaling. She doesn't just live her life, she studies it. She's like an ethnographer of her own journey.
That's fascinating. And among those documented rituals, her signature habit really stands out.
Yeah.
She meticulously scripts her future like a movie in vivid cinematic detail.
Okay, what does that look like?
Well, this isn't vague affirmation work, like just writing win an Emmy on a sticky note and hoping for the best.
Right.
Instead, she writes something like, interior, day. I'm wearing emerald green. The category is best talk show host. The camera zooms in on my mom's face in the front row. I'm crying. Cut to standing ovation.
That's specific.
That's specific. This is what she calls narrative engineering, essentially. Crafting her desired future like a compelling script for a film. And it's an incredibly powerful form of emotional visualization, where she doesn't just think about success, she vividly feels it as if it's already happened. By pre-experiencing that outcome internally, she's building what she calls emotional muscle and reinforcing neural pathways, making the future feel somehow inevitable, not just possible. It's a way of priming her subconscious for action and resilience.
Wow, narrative engineering. What's equally fascinating is how she applies this intense, almost athletic approach to everything, including learning. Tyra, as she puts it, approaches learning like a sport.
Like a sport, okay.
Yeah. When she enrolled in Harvard Business School's executive education program back in 2011, she was acutely aware of the whispers, the doubts. What's a supermodel doing at Harvard?
We talked about that, Sting.
Exactly. But she didn't let that deter her. Instead, she used it as fuel. She worked harder than anyone expected, not primarily to prove them wrong necessarily, but maybe more to prove herself right. To master the material on her own terms and ensure she wasn't just a face in the classroom, she was truly there to learn.
And her study habits at Harvard were apparently legendary among her peers. She didn't just read the case study, she rewrote every case study in her own language, dissecting them, reassembling the arguments in a way that really resonated with her.
Making it her own.
Making it her own. She filled notebooks with frameworks and practiced delivering branding pitches to her dorm mirror until like 2 a.m. This wasn't about simply earning credentials. It was about earning fluency in her next identity.
Earning fluency.
Exactly. She knew that to transition from being the face to being the architect, she needed to master the language and mechanics of business, finance, strategy. Even today, she continues to study business books like scripts, using different colored highlighters for strategy, emotion, brand voice. It's a testament that her success is not random, it's a system, built on meticulous, consistent learning and a relentless pursuit of knowledge that supports her evolving self.
So what becomes undeniably clear here is that her habits aren't just personal. They actually bleed into how she leads. Tyra mentors in real time, in the most unexpected ways, demonstrating her philosophy in action.
How so?
Well, she would even pause scenes during America's Next Top Model to give contestants feedback, not just on their runway walk or their photo shoot, but on their deeper mindset.
Wow.
She famously told one contestant, "You're performing like someone who doesn't think she belongs here. Let's fix that first." Every set, every startup, every staff meeting she treats as a teaching moment, always driving home these deeper lessons about self-belief, strategic thinking, and the power of owning your narrative.
And this reveals a truly powerful truth. Tyra doesn't simply wait for growth to happen, she actively designs for it. At her core, she isn't obsessed with staying famous, which is often the perceived goal, right?
The default assumption.
The default. Instead, she's obsessed with staying evolving. She actively cultivates an identity that is constantly in flux, constantly learning, constantly adapting. Of course, this mindset comes with a significant, let's call it, tax of reinvention.
Okay.
She's admitted to feeling like she's living 5 lives at once sometimes, and that for one version of her to thrive, another must die quietly.
Letting go.
Letting go. This underscores a critical insight that many people try to avoid. You can't be iconic and comfortable at the same time. True, lasting impact often requires a willingness to shed old skins, even if they're comfortable and celebrated, because comfort can absolutely be the enemy of growth.
That's such a profound observation. It means the core insight here is this. Stop romanticizing the finish line. Stop thinking success is some endpoint. Start building rituals that proactively shape who you are before success ever arrives. Because success itself won't magically transform you, your consistent habits will.
And that brings us to our next reflection question for you, the listener. Are your daily behaviors truly leading you toward reinvention, towards a future version of yourself? Or are they just helping you survive what already exists, basically keeping you in a holding pattern?
Survival versus evolution.
Exactly. Think about the implications of those daily choices as we consider Tyra's radical philosophy of letting go.
Okay, now let's talk about a decision that most public figures absolutely dread. Dread. The moment the applause starts to fade, the ratings dip, the offers slow down, the spotlight inevitably shifts. It's the ultimate fear, right, for someone whose career is built on visibility.
It has to be terrifying.
But here's the radical choice Tyra Banks made. She walked away from it on purpose. In 2015, while America's Next Top Model was still a massive global hit, still generating significant revenue, still buzzing culturally, she made a bold, quiet decision.
What was it?
She stepped down. She decided to retire the show, to let go of the very thing that had made her a cultural icon and secured her fortune. Most people at the time, they called it career suicide. They just couldn't understand why she would abandon such a successful venture when it was still arguably at its peak.
And from Tyra's unique perspective, staying too long in one identity, even a wildly successful one, was the real threat.
The threat wasn't leaving, it was staying.
Exactly. She didn't want to be permanently defined by the crown she had earned at 30, even if it was this comfortable, glittering crown. Her ambition was far grander. She wanted to create new kingdoms at 40, 50, 60. This is the very core of her life philosophy.
Don't let your greatest success become your permanent costume.
Wow. Don't let it trap you. Don't let it trap you. She articulated this powerfully, saying, if I had stayed the model, the host, the TV Tyra, I might have been celebrated, but I would have been stuck in a version of myself that was no longer true. She understood that true growth meant actively releasing the very roles that had brought her immense fame, creating space for new expressions of her evolving identity.
Yes.
This wasn't about avoiding failure. It was about choosing a different path forward, intentionally.
So she embarked on these subsequent reinventions, actively choosing identity over applause. First, with Tyra Beauty, where, as we touched on earlier, she poured her time, her name, her own money into building a brand that aimed to democratize beauty, empowering everyday women to become their own entrepreneurs. It was her test ground, maybe, for releasing that comfortable public persona and embracing a new, riskier entrepreneurial identity. Then, when that chapter concluded, when it didn't achieve the long-term scale of a beauty giant, she pivoted again, this time to SMiZE Dream. On the surface, yes, it's an ice cream company. But as we've already explored, it's a much deeper metaphor for Tyra's entire life and philosophy. Sweetness hidden beneath challenge, joy hidden inside struggle.
The truffle at the bottom.
Exactly. She deliberately designed that secret truffle at the bottom of every cup because, as she says, that surprise is life. You have to go deep to get it. It's a tangible representation of her belief system, a brand built on philosophy, not just flavor.
And her 2024 move to Australia to expand SMiZE Dream internationally, it directly connects to this philosophical approach of prioritizing identity over external validation. It's not just a business relocation, it's a break from the U.S. market's relentless pressure to stay visible. And a strategic choice for a chance to build slowly, intentionally, without having to perform for constant public scrutiny.
Stepping out of the pressure cooker.
Exactly. This reveals a profound, consistent pattern in her choices. Tyra doesn't make decisions for headlines. She makes them for alignment. Her choices are driven by this internal compass, by what resonates with her evolving identity and her long-term vision, rather than external validation or popular opinion. This is a rare and powerful quality, especially for someone who has spent decades in the public eye.
It truly is. And this choice for alignment, it often means, well, disappointing expectations, breaking your own patterns, or letting go of what's still working. That's incredibly difficult when you've built your life on being seen, on being celebrated. But for Tyra, she long ago decided that applause, while flattering, is not a compass. She doesn't chase relevance, she chases resonance. She lives by this simple yet remarkably rare framework, particularly for a public figure. Don't ask, will this be popular? Ask, will this still make sense when the lights go off? She's thinking decades ahead, not just themes or quarterly earnings.
And this brings us to a powerful conclusion about her decision-making. True leadership isn't about staying at the front of the line. It's about knowing when to start a new one alone, if necessary.
Yeah.
It's about having the conviction to forge a new path even when the current one is still yielding success, because it's no longer aligned with your deepest sense of purpose and identity. It requires immense self-awareness and courage to step away from what's comfortable and celebrated, embracing a future that perhaps only you might envision. This is the essence of building a truly enduring legacy.
So the core insight from this section is undeniable. Legacy isn't built on repetition. It's built on the courage to choose growth over applause and identity over image.
And that leaves us with a critical reflection question. What role in your life is still winning on paper? Maybe fulfilling old expectations or delivering consistent results, but quietly, it's killing your deeper evolution, preventing you from becoming who you're truly meant to be.
Oof, that cuts deep.
Consider that as we delve into how Tyra doesn't just lead herself, but actively leads culture.
Okay, there's a crucial distinction we need to make here, one that Tyra Banks implicitly understood long before, maybe, it became a mainstream concept. There's a massive difference between being popular and being powerful.
Say more about that.
Well, popularity, that depends on permission, right? On external validation, on being liked. But power, true power, that comes from intention, from an internal drive to shape the world around you. And Tyra Banks has spent her entire career making this distinction glaringly clear, not by chasing what's trending, but by proactively shaping conversations the industry literally didn't know it needed to have.
And this is precisely what she did with the Tyra Banks Show, which she launched back in 2005.
Yeah.
It had a radically different tone from typical daytime television of that era.
Very different.
While most shows were immersed in, celebrity gossip or maybe superficial self-help, Tyra was fearlessly tackling uncomfortable, deeply personal topics. Body dysmorphia, the insidious effects of colorism within the fashion industry and beyond, abusive beauty standards, bullying, eating disorders.
Heavy stuff for daytime TV then.
Really heavy stuff. These were issues she brought right to the forefront, giving them national attention and a platform, long before they were hashtag conversations or trending topics on social media. Her approach was profound and often groundbreaking. She brought young girls onto the stage not to fix them, but to show them they weren't broken, fostering self-acceptance.
Powerful.
She removed her own makeup on camera to challenge the illusion of perfection, invited plus-size models to share the stage, and even confronted her own studio audience about their implicit biases regarding beauty and body image. This wasn't about entertainment for its own sake. It was about genuine, impactful social influence and challenging the status quo head-on.
And this reveals a core understanding Tyra had very early on. If you have attention, if you have a platform, you have a fundamental choice. You can use that attention purely to build yourself up, inflate your own ego, simply accumulate more fame, or you can use it to build a ladder for others, to uplift and empower. And she, repeatedly, chose the latter. Her platform was always about more than just her. It was about sparking these uncomfortable but necessary conversations and giving a voice to those who felt unseen, unheard, or marginalized by traditional media and beauty standards. Her shows, her public speaking engagements, even her curriculum at Stanford, they all kind of converge around this central, powerful question: who gets to be seen and who gets to decide why they're valuable? Tyra, from the outset, knew she was far more than just a model, a face, yet the world didn't always see or believe that. So instead of merely trying to convince people with arguments or by waving credentials, she built proof.
Proof over persuasion.
Exactly. Businesses, movements, classrooms, until no one could ignore the impact. This is not just about leveraging fame. It's about converting visibility into tangible, undeniable influence that actively reshapes perceptions, challenges norms, and opens doors for others who might not have had a voice. She proved her intellectual and strategic depth by demonstrating it, not just declaring it. Her boldest act of influence, I think, really materialized through academia, specifically at Stanford Graduate School of Business in 2016. She wasn't just a celebrity guest lecturer dropping in for a one-off session.
No, she was deeply involved.
Deeply involved. She helped design the curriculum for an MBA course called Project U, which was pretty groundbreaking. In this course, she taught students, many of whom would go on to lead major companies, how to use storytelling, body language, digital presence, not just to go viral or achieve fleeting attention, but to architect influence.
Architect influence, that's the term.
Yeah, to build trust, attract alignment, and truly move people to action. It was about creating a deeper, more meaningful connection and impact, not just chasing fleeting attention or superficial popularity.
And this clarifies her profound power thinking. She fundamentally doesn't follow virality. She creates meaning. She doesn't conform to existing markets. She expands them, often by identifying unmet needs or overlooked demographics.
Finding the gaps.
Finding the gaps. And crucially, she doesn't chase relevance. She teaches longevity, how to build a career in a brand that actually endures. This isn't accidental or opportunistic leadership. This is cultural leadership, not by accident, but by philosophy. She systematically identifies gaps, anticipates needs, and then builds platforms and narratives that reshape the cultural landscape, always with an eye on lasting impact and responsible influence, using her own unique blend of experience and strategic foresight.
So what becomes undeniably clear here is that if you're visible, if you have any platform at all, even a small one, you're already influencing something. The profound question is, what are you reinforcing and what are you challenging? That's a powerful distinction to consider in our own lives, whether we're on a global stage or simply within our immediate circles.
And that leads us to our reflection question for you. Are you building a brand, personal or professional, that simply follows the world's trends and expectations? Or are you creating one that gives the world a new way to see itself, a new perspective, a new standard?
Follower or leader, essentially.
Essentially. As we transition, consider how this philosophy of intentional influence extends to her approach to crises and playing the ultimate long game.
Okay, for most people, when they achieve success, their instinct is to hold on to it tightly, right? They grip it, they guard it, because there's this inherent, almost primal fear that it might just slip away.
The scarcity mindset kicks in.
Totally. But Tyra Banks, she truly doesn't operate like most people. She holds this unique belief, a deeply contrarian one, that sometimes the absolute smartest move you can make is to walk away while you're still winning.
Counterintuitive.
Very. And it's not because you're tired or burnt out necessarily. It's because you recognize when the game you were playing is no longer worth playing for your long-term evolution. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
This philosophy was perfectly encapsulated in what many perceived as her boldest shift yet back in 2020. As the world was reeling, unraveling in a global pandemic, lockdown, anxious, Tyra made the strategic and seemingly counterintuitive moved to launch SMiZE Dream.
Right in the middle of it all.
Right in the middle. It wasn't just another premium ice cream brand. It was meticulously designed for connection and comfort in a time of isolation. And that hidden surprise truffle at the bottom of every cup. The symbolism was incredibly intentional. Life's best moments are hidden beneath the surface. You have to dig to get there.
Hey.
This was more than just a product. It was a message, a philosophy, embedded in a tangible experience that spoke to that collective human need for unexpected joy during a really challenging time.
And she didn't build this new venture through traditional splashy celebrity endorsements, which, let's face it, would have been the easy and expected route for her.
Absolutely.
Instead, she chose to invest in physical pop-up experiences, personalized customer moments, and cross-generational messaging. This wasn't about creating immediate hype or a viral moment. It was deliberately designed to build emotional memory, to create something lasting and deeply resonant with her audience, focusing on the quality of the experience over quick market penetration. It's a slower, more deliberate growth strategy rooted in authentic connection.
And then, in 2024, she made an even more surprising move, further cementing her long-game strategy. She relocated herself and the entire SMiZE Dream operations to Sydney, Australia. Wow, big move. Big move. On paper, this might have looked like a retreat from the American spotlight, maybe a stepping back. But if you analyze her established patterns, it was classic Tyra. A move driven by foresight, not fear.
How so?
Well, when a market gets saturated or overly noisy, she intentionally looks elsewhere for fresh ground. When the attention becomes too noisy and distracting, she consciously chooses silence and focus. When cultural expectations demand she continues performing old roles, she decisively picks designing and building new ventures instead. It's a deliberate, strategic repositioning to optimize for long-term growth and personal alignment.
So her crisis strategy is remarkably simple, yet completely radical and counterintuitive for most. Recede from the center to expand your edge.
Expand your edge.
Yeah. This is the precise strategy that has enabled her not just to survive, but to truly thrive across 3 decades, 3 vastly different industries, and multiple significant cultural shifts. It's not about clinging to fleeting relevance. It's about continuously redefining the very terms of relevance on her own terms, always staying ahead of the curve.
This is how Tyra Banks consistently plays the long game. It manifests in practical ways.
Yeah.
Saying no to lucrative short-term TV deals, consistently declining offers to reboot the very shows that made her a household name.
Even when the audience might want it.
Even when the audience might want it, and instead, choosing to build businesses slowly, internationally, in cultures more open to risk and reinvention. She operates on a completely different timeline than most entrepreneurs who are often laser-focused on the next quarter or the next news cycle.
Right, short-term pressures.
Exactly. Where most entrepreneurs panic in crisis, she prepositions herself. She doesn't ask, how do I keep up with what's happening now? Instead, she asks the far more strategic question, where will attention shift next, and how do I get there first on my own terms? It's a masterclass in strategic patience and foresight.
So, in essence, this isn't about escaping struggle or avoiding challenges altogether. It's about actively engineering the necessary space, be it geographical, intellectual, or emotional, to think clearly and strategically while everyone else is reacting in the heat of the moment, caught up in the noise. It's a profound form of self-mastery in chaos.
And this reinforces the core insight of this section. You don't need to be in the spotlight to be in control. In fact, sometimes the most strategic power move is stepping away, so you can re-enter as something bigger, bolder, and freer, having built a new foundation away from the public gaze.
That's a huge takeaway. And for your own life or business, here's a reflection question to carry with you. In your current situation, are you primarily reacting to the demands of the present, or are you strategically preparing for the version of you that the future will inevitably demand?
Future-proofing yourself.
Exactly. So, as we bring this deep dive into Tyra Banks to a close, let's reframe the core product of her entire career. What if the real product Tyra Banks built wasn't just a TV show or a beauty line or even an ice cream brand? What if the most powerful thing she ever created was herself?
Interesting.
Not simply the supermodel or the celebrity or the professor, but the underlying system, a self-designed identity engine capable of evolving, adapting, and continuously producing value across wildly different industries, continents, and decades.
That is truly the grand takeaway here, and it's a profound one. Tyra Banks didn't merely change careers or accumulate wealth or even just influence culture in a transient way. She profoundly proved that personal reinvention is the most underrated form of power. a power often overlooked in our fast-paced, externally driven world.
So true.
In a culture relentlessly obsessed with staying relevant, by chasing trends. She teaches us that sustainable success emerges not from being everywhere or pleasing everyone, but from being deeply, genuinely aligned with your next chapter,
Yeah.
even if no one else comprehends it yet.
Yeah.
She demonstrated unequivocally that you don't have to stay visible to stay valuable, that fame is fleeting, but systems are permanent, and that applause fades, but alignment compounds, building value in ways that go far beyond surface recognition.
And perhaps most importantly, she shows us that identity is not something you inherit, it's something you architect. Deliberately, meticulously, over time, with every bold choice you make, often behind closed doors, away from public scrutiny. Because in the end, Tyra's empire isn't built on beauty or just business acumen alone. It's built on agency. The kind of profound agency that truly lets you walk away from the very thing that made you famous, because you've already designed, meticulously, the next version of who you're becoming. And that, my friends, is not just rare. That is legacy in its truest, most self-determined form.
Now, perhaps you listening have never walked a runway. Maybe you've never produced a groundbreaking TV show or launched a global brand. But I'll bet this. There's a version of you, a powerful, evolved version that the world hasn't met yet.
I believe that.
Perhaps it's buried under old expectations, or it's waiting patiently behind a job you've quietly outgrown. Or maybe it's hidden beneath a story you keep telling yourself about what you're allowed to do or who you're supposed to be. Remember, Tyra Banks didn't wait for permission.
No, she gave it to herself.
She consciously wrote her next chapter, often before the last one was even truly finished. She deliberately let go of applause to claim a deeper alignment with her evolving self. She moved across industries, across countries, even across identities, not because she was lost, but precisely because she was growing faster than any box society had tried to build around her. She consistently asked, what is the next phase of my potential?
So here's the ultimate question, the one only you can truly answer for yourself. What part of you needs to end? What old role? What old expectation? What comfortable costume? So something greater, something more aligned can finally begin. If this deep dive stirred something in you, if it reminded you of a version of yourself you've been avoiding, or maybe a future self you haven't dared to pursue, don't just scroll past it. Pause. Reflect. Share it with someone else who's quietly outgrowing their current chapter, who might need this blueprint for intentional reinvention.
And if you're new here, subscribe to The Deep Dive. This is where we explore the hidden blueprints behind real wealth, not just financial wealth, but personal, creative, and generational wealth. Stay with us. Your next breakthrough might just begin with one story, one insight. And today, that story was Tyra's.